welcome guest of honor, Professor B.B. Lal, a centenarian. We wish him a very long life and a healthy life. He just celebrated his 100th birthday early this month. And he's the foremost archaeologist, world renowned, and the foremost archaeologist in India, a former Director General of the Department of Archaeology of Government of India. We are honored to have you, sir, today with us. And today's topic is to look at archaeology as the primary source of history, on which Dr. Vasanthi will be speaking a little later. But just for the benefit of all our audience, let me first give a short introduction on Professor B.B. Lal and his fabulous track record. Professor Lal was born on 2nd of May 1921 in Baidora in Jhansi district. This people can also, let me share the presentation. One second. Okay, can you see it now?
Oh, yeah, it's okay now. Thanks.
Okay, he obtained his master's from Allahabad University in Sanskrit, first division first. He joined the Archaeological Survey of India in 1946, became its youngest Director General at the age of 46. He took a voluntary retirement at the age of 52 for research work and writing and joined the Jivaji University in 1972. He was invited by the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, and became its director in 1975. His work now, his contribution has been in multiple areas and on various very, topics which has changed the debate and the composition with respect to what has been built up earlier by a lot of European researchers. So first one is on dating of the Rig Veda itself, which was originally ascribed to Max Muller, who dated it to 1200 BC. And Professor Lal, contested that, and his estimation is that 3rd millennium BC, and that was based on the Kalibangan excavations. The second most important, debate that he settled is the Aryan invasion theory. Max Muller was the first to actually allude that the Aryans invaded India in 1500 BC. And thereafter, of course, you are dating the Harappa Mohenjo-daro Indus Valley civilization to 1200 BC. Professor Lal said there is no invasion by the so-called Aryans. The Indus Valley people were indigenous. Architectural evidence commencing from 5th millennium BC is what he actually unearthed. And the issue of Harappan civilization and where he established was originally was by the European researchers as non-Vedic, that is Mortimer Wheeler and before. And Professor Lal contested that and said Harappan civilization was authored by the Rig Vedic people. The Rig Vedic people research outcome and research books were published in 2015. The Aryan invasion theory and out of India theory has actually animated a lot of discussion over the last few decades. Professor Lal clearly stated that there was no movement of peoples from Central Asia. In fact, there was a movement of people from India to Turkey, Anatolia, Afghanistan, through Afghanistan and Iran. That's, I think, a significant observation and a revelation. And then, of course, his contributions, his major research has been on Mahabharata and the epics. Quite obviously, the Mahabharata is an itihasa which has significant elements of rooted history. It's not just myths. And these are based on excavations and research into the scriptures. Matsya Purana is one. Ramayana similarly is itihasa, not a myth. And Rama and historical factors have been researched by him extensively. Similarly, he's also established that Manu's flood took place around 2000 BC. And that's based on his research on the Shatavahana Brahmana. And of course, his most important contribution is establishing that a temple did exist below the Babri Masjid, which is based on his analysis and discovery of temple pillars below at the basement. And this, of course, finally, enable the Supreme Court to come to a judgment, which was, done a few years ago. He also discovered the earliest agricultural field in Kalibangan and dated it to 2700 BC. The earliest earthquake discovery was also through an archaeological excavation at Kalibangan, and that has been dated at 2700 BC. His work on the origins of Delhi, and he established that the Indraprastha is the earliest Delhi with a continuous occupation going back to Mahabharata times, which means it's almost about 5,000 years. He was also the first to establish that the Harappan script runs from right to left, and re-establishing through excavation the antiquity of Afe and Tumas in Nubia, a connection to Egypt to even earlier period. Of course, he's been a prolific writer. He's an author of 23 books, 150 seminal papers published in India and abroad. He's had in his career numerous awards, and of course, the most important ones, he was awarded the Padma Vibhushan by the President of India this year on the Republic Day, 2021. He was awarded Padma Bhushan by the President in 2000. He's been honored by the Vice President of India in 2019 with the release of the book felicitating a legendary archaeologist, B.B. Lal. He was also honored by the Vice President of India in 1997 with the release of the book Facets of Indian Archaeology. And he was honored by the Prime Minister of India for Lifetime Achievement Award in 2015. He's been given honorary D.Litt by St. Petersburg University in 1994, honorary D.Litt by Deccan College Deemed University in 2014, Vidya Vardhi by Nalanda University in 1979, and the award of Mahopadhyaya by Mithila Vishwavidyalaya in 1987. And there are numerous other awards to actually list. It is indeed, sir, a great honor to have you with us, and we welcome you to the Peninsula Foundation. I now hand over to Dr. S. Ram Mohan, who's a co-founder of the Peninsula Foundation and also Vice President. He's a former Special Secretary of the Indian Railways Accounting Service, and he's highly qualified. He has about 6 degrees, including a PhD and MBA and a degree in Spanish. But more importantly, he is an expert on ancient Indian history, in Tamil literature, in philosophy, and he gives a lot of lectures and publishes papers around the world. He will chair the session today, and he will introduce the speaker, Dr. Vasanthi, as well. Dr. Ramon, over to you.
Good evening to all of you. My greetings to all members of the enlightened audience here, assembled online to listen to 2 remarkable speakers on the archaeological scene of today. Dr. B.B. Lal, the legendary scholar and the Bhishma Pitamaha of archaeology in India, and Dr. Vasanthi, who was the former ad hoc director of archaeology in government of Tamil Nadu, who has also directed path-breaking discoveries in the archaeology and research in Tamil Nadu. Let me tell a few words about what is the topic of today. What is archaeology, or what is not archaeology? It is not Indiana Jones or Tomb Raiders. It is not mere thought hunting, not even paleontology. It is primarily reconstructing extinct cultures and civilizations from materials, remains of past human who have left them behind. They are called artifacts, which were once connected with the human action, but then disappeared in the dark stages of history. These artifacts give clues to how people lived and how they evolved through skill development. While the organic remains perished with passage of time, the non-perishable artifacts help in extract extract a lot of information about the social and the cultural organization, the way of living of ancient civilizations. To understand the past artifact, we have to be, we have to uh, see the time and space in which they live based on the geological law of association and the geological law of superposition. We are fortunate to have today Dr. B.B. Lal, as mentioned, the great Pitamaha, the centenarian, whose contributions are numerous. I am too small to talk about him, yet I feel we are all honored to listen to his presentation today for a short while. I invite Dr. B.B. Lal to give a short talk on this with whatever time permits to him. And then we will listen to Dr. Vasanti. Dr. B.B. Lal, namaste, welcome.
Namaste, namaste.
Namaste, sir.
Well, I'm most grateful to you and Air Marshal Mathusaran for inviting me to be guest of honor at this meeting. What Dr. Air Marshal Mathusaran has said about me is a long list, long list. And I think I hardly deserve all that. You see, mine has been a very simple thing. You see, while at school, some 85 years ago, I was told by my teachers that the Mahabharata and Ramayana are myths. There is no reality in them. And the Aryans came from Central Asia via Khyber Pass and invaded India. Now I listened to these things and felt very uncomfortable, but there was very little that I could do. So I was seething within myself. But in 1946, I joined the Archaeological Survey of India and was put in charge of the excavations branch. I suddenly realized I had a very important tool in my hands, namely that of field archaeology. So I started working on it. And my first line of inquiry was about the historicity of the Mahabharata. I explored and excavated all the sites associated with that story and found they were characterized by a particular kind of material culture distinguished by a special pottery which is gray in color, is painted in black. We call it in archaeological terms painted graveware. Now, this painted graveware was found in the lowest levels of all the Mahabharata sites. So this made them contemporary. And the period involved was from 1200 to 800 BC on the basis of carbon-14 method of dating. So their contemporaneity during this period was duly established, but that did not help us to determine the historicity of the map, which still remained a fact. So I took up excavation at Hastinapur, the capital of the Kauravas, and I found very exciting evidence. The ancient mound of Hastinapur is situated along the right bank of the river Ganga in Meerut district of Uttar Pradesh. I put a trench right across the mound, and strangely, I found that the painted ware occurred on the non-river side, and on the river side it was absent. I was totally confused by it, but then spent many wakeful nights. But one night suddenly at about 1 o'clock, it occurred to me, is it that the river has washed away a part of the mound at Hastinapur? and I did the excavation, and I found evidence of a flood having washed away Hastinapur. So, and then I looked up ancient literature and found in the Puranas, particularly Matsya Purana and Vayu Purana, which give the genealogy of the successors of the of Parikshit in the Kaurav dynasty. Now, the Matsya Purana and Vayu Purana say, giving that list, 15th generation was a king called Nichakshu. The Vayu Purana says, Gangaya aprate tasmin nagare nagasa avaye tyaktva nichakshu nagaram kaushambhyam sannivatsati. Translated into English, it means that when the city of Hastinapur was washed away by a flood in the Ganga, Nichakshu transferred his capital to Kaushambi. Now, in archaeological excavation, we found the evidence of the flood. Then the second statement in the Puranas that the capital was shifted to Kaushambi was also established archaeologically. In the lowest levels of Kaushambi, we found a painted gravure of a degenerated type, which started towards the end of the life of Hastinapur. So there was a complete correlation. And then the list goes on till 25th from Parikshit is the name of the king called Udayan. Udayan. He was a contemporary of Buddha, which means he was ruling around roughly 500 BC. There are 25 generations from Parikshit to Udayan. Which, now I worked out the average of per ruler, taking all the rulers of India during the earlier times, Gupta, Shunga, Kushan, and the medieval times, the Muslim rulers, and found that the average is 13.55. Now, if we generously round it off to 15 and multiply this figure by 25, we get a figure of 625. And added to 500 BC, we arrived for the date of the Mahabharata around 1000 BC. So this is, one of the first contributions made by me. But I must immediately add that this is not really my doing. The work was done through me. There was an inner voice all the time inspiring me, goading me, and guiding me. In fact, in a book of mine published about 15 years ago, which is a sort of autobiography, there is an epilogue. And in the last two lines run like this. Through Sadhguru's grace, I have come to realize that I am only a typist. I am only a typist. The dictation giver is someone else. It is indeed that someone else that has been guiding me all through my life. It's a hard fact. It's not a fiction. And I have realized it. So I'm grateful to that inner voice or that inner self for what has been done by me. I don't have personally to take any credit for it. I mean, that is the story. And about archaeology helping to rebuild history of India, you see, right up to the beginning, first quarter of the 20th century, it was believed that Indian culture was only as old as 600 BC. But the excavations at Mohenjo-daro and Harappa suddenly opened up the vista. And we found that the history and culture of India goes back to the 3rd millennium BC. And after partition, all the sites Harappa and Mohenjo-daro went over to Pakistan. But Indian archaeologists did not lose courage, and they worked very hard. And by now they have discovered more than 2,000 sites of the Harappan civilization on the Indian side of the border. And it's not really the number that matters. The Indian sites have given very important unusual evidence. For example, Lothal has given the earliest dockyard going back to about 2400 BC. Or Dholavira has given us water management in which very big tanks were excavated by the people. Kalibangan has given us the earliest evidence of an agricultural field whose furrows run at a crisscross pattern. So, we have been adding quite a lot to the knowledge of Harappan civilization, which is also now called Indus-Saraswati civilization, starting from Indus all the way to Saraswati. So archaeology is really something where you don't have any evidence of any kind of literature. Archaeology is the only tool which can help us in reconstructing India's past. Thank you very much for patient listening. I anxiously look forward to your lecture,
Vasanti.
Dr. Vasanti. I look forward to your lecture and hope I will learn something from it.
No, sir. No, actually.
Thank you, Marshal.
Thank you.
Mati Sharan, for so kindly inviting me to be a guest of honor on this occasion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are blessed.
Dandavat Pranam, Professor. We are all honored and humbled before your presence. What a clarity and precision. It is really great. In the Peninsular Foundation is truly blessed by your presence today.
So can you take some questions now for a short time before Dr. Vasanti starts the lecture?
Questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
I will be glad to take questions after listening to the excellent talk.
Fine.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Excellent. Now, we are next speaker will be another remarkable scholar, Dr. Vasanti, a former ad hoc director of the commissioner of archaeology and the Tamil Nadu government. She retired in 2012, but even now she actively engaged. She is in the faculty of Institute of Tamil Culture, National Institute of Tamil at Madras, where she is taking classes on archaeology and allied things. She is the author of several books on like the Nitya Kalyana Venkateshwara Swami Temple at Tiruvidandai, then some other temples. Then he is published an anthology of essays on excavations and other related topics in Tamil Nadu. Then very remarkable book called The Peeping the Past Through Paleolithic Tools. Then the monograph on Vrahavatara. Then a book, co-authored books on rock art of Tamil Nadu, archaeological excavation reports of the department, and then exhibition right up on the Chola bronzes. Then the book on inscriptions in Tamil Nadu. A large number of inscriptions are in Tamil Nadu, and she published various articles, professional journals, and attended the international conferences in several places like Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, and enthralled the audience with her profound talks. I was also there in these countries, so I know how the audience appreciated their lectures. So she modernized the activities of the archaeological department through digital publications, etc. She is guiding the PhD candidates in part-time and full-time, and did lot of contributions. Then he acted as the member of the expert member of the project of digital Pumpuhar, digital reconstruction of the ancient port city of Pumpuhar, which was mentioned in Tamil text Pattinapalai of the 3rd century BC. Then also on Tirukural, her contribution is endless. She is conducting diploma courses in archaeology and epigraphy in the International Institute of Tamil Studies, Government of Tamil Nadu. We are looking forward to her enlightening lecture. After that, we will take questions along with Professor B.B. Lal. And I am also thankful to another great scholar who is present among us today, Dr. Kalyan Raman, the director of the Saraswati Research Institute, who has done a significant contribution by deciphering the Saraswati Indus script and published volumes after volumes, which is awaiting international recognition now. He is the director, and I am really blessed to be his co-director in the Saraswati Research Institute. He is my mentor and guide. I am happy, despite his problems, he is able to be present today out of his respect for Professor Lal and his love for the subject. Welcome, Dr. Kalyan Raman, and I invite Dr. Vasanthi to give her wonderful presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Really, I'm blessed. I don't know how, I can't express my words because I'm really blessed. As sir said, today I'm blessed by God to have two scholars. That is he is our honorable, what we'll say, Pitamahan. He is our Pitamahan. Really, I'm honored, sir, to be here. And Kalyana Raman also, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Sir, I will share my, so actually, I don't know, sir will be coming here. I got, it's a basic things only I'm giving here. But I raised all the questions raised by Maheshwaran sir. That questions I have put, and we'll discuss. We'll have a discussion here because we got a big scholar with us, Kalyanan sir and VP Rao sir. We'll discuss things. First, I'll share things, sir. First of all, I'll share my PPT. Namaskaram, sir. This is about, yeah. So it's a basic things only I'm sharing here. What is archaeology and why it's this is the Constitution of India. It shall be the duty of every citizens of India to value and preserve the rich heritage of our compositors. No, I thought it's only for the students, but now big scholars are here. So I'm giving only the basic things, but I have some questions here that we'll discuss later on. I'll show the pictures also, sir, for your time. So this is what is heritage that most of you know. So I will skip here. So this is also basic things only. Archaeology is essentially, as sir said, is essentially a method of reconstructing the past from the surviving traces of the former societies. Both archaeology and history are concerned with the study of human past. Archaeology presents another method of approach to history. It is a study of human culture through the material evidence, as already stated by Dr. Badabhushan and Dr. B.V. Lal. So these are all I will skip, sir. These are all small introduction. So archaeology involves itself with reconstructing the cultural element of culture, or even just the everyday life of a group of people or an individual. So I want to differentiate what is history and what is archaeology. History, on the other hand, examines the political and social trends, the ruling elite and dates. But archaeology as a discipline has developed into a new discipline and can be divided into a classical archaeology, prehistoric archaeology, and historical archaeology. Archaeology can be called as both the science and an art. So what are the branches of archaeology? Most of the people might have known, but anyway, I will list it out. Branches of archaeology: prehistoric archaeology, zoo archaeology, archaeobotany, archaeobotanical, paleontology, ethnoarchaeology, underwater archaeology, geoarchaeology. So these are some of the branches. And other branches are environmental archaeology, epigraphy, numismatics, art and archaeology, cultural archaeology, architecture, and archaeology. So these are the things, branches of the archaeological thing. So what is a site museum, and museums are there in India. Site museums are and the excavated sites itself. Sarnath, Ajanta, Nagarjunakonda in South India. Site museums of the Department of Archaeology. We got site museums in our department. Kumbhar, Gangikonda Cholapuram, Prehistoric Site Museum at Hindi. These are the museums present in Tamil Nadu. Museums in National Museum, New Delhi. Government Museum, Chennai Museum, and Salajang Museum, Hyderabad. These are the museums. So I want to show some more pictures, sir, that might be interesting to you people, the scholars, sir. This is the gold ring collected from Karur, sir. It's a gold ring. The gold ring of remarkable artistic merit belongs to 1st century BC, CE, that is Common Era. Despite the couple of extraordinary grace and beauty, one of the most outstanding things of Indian art, sir. But at present, it is not here. It is not in India. It has gone to outside India. So this is very interesting thing we collected in the Amaravati riverbed at Karur, sir. Karur is near Coimbatore. It's very near Coimbatore. This is a trade route, sir. This is from Kodumanal and other area. It's a trade route. Where we collected this thing in the Amaravati riverbed, not in excavation. These are all not from excavation. These are all from the exploration only. And the perceiving the riverbed sand, we collected these things. This is another interesting thing, sir. This is a Chera coin with inscription dated to 1st century AD or CE. This is a Kollipurayan. It is written in Tamil Brahmi script. Kollipurayan. It is written here. Here it's a very interesting thing. This king is standing here in a pavilion, and he is holding something here. On the back side, the king's head is given. So that which picture I'm not having here now. That picture is a very interesting thing because this is very important and interesting. Dr. Krishnamurthy, formerly numismatician, now he passed away. He has identified this as a Kollipurayan caste of Chera dynasty from Karur area. And these are some of the rock art paintings in and around Viluppuram area. We explored and we have found out so many rock art sites in and around. This is all about Tamil Nadu only, sir. And this is in Viluppuram area. This is the Keelwal. This is called as a place called Keelwalai, where a man is standing, man is proceeding in the horseback. Another man, one man is holding the bridle. Another man is receiving this group. So this might be a migration of the groups from one area to another place. And here we can see a group of people dancing here with holding their hands. Maybe the tribal, nowadays the tribes are also dancing such things. This is from Keelwalai. This is dated to 300 BC, sir. BC means Iron Age or megalithic burials. There are a lot of megalithic burials in and around this area. This is a place called Ladan Koil near Madurai. This is the early Pandya architectural features are there. It's a Kudavarai. It's called as Rocket Cave. Early Pandya. Here you can see a Gupera's symbol here. Gupera's statue. Just mixed things because I'm going to have a question and we'll discuss about those things. So I got some photographs to have an idea about Tamil Nadu and other things. This is the Danish fort at Tarangambadi. This is a protected monument of State Department of Archaeology. Tarangambadi is near Nahapattinam. It's in Nahapattinam district. It's a very famous Danish fort. This is Maratha Darbar Hall, Tanjavur. There are a lot of beautiful paintings are there. Still, we are preserving, sir. All the Sarpochi paintings and icons are there. All paintings are there. These are all painted by the herbal paintings. This is another place. This is also another place. This is in Tanjavur. This is Ramalinga Vilasam Palace at Ramnad. This is in Ramnad is near, on the way to Rameshwaram. It's a Ramnad district. It's a palace there. It was the palace by the Sethupathi kings. So this palace is very important because it has got lot of paintings of Sethupathi kings. So this is the beautiful Ramalinga Vilasa painting. See the beauty of the lady, their hairhead, their headdress, all their ornamentation, the pose, everything is nice. And somebody is giving some musical instruments also shown here. This is underwater archaeological exploration conducted by Dr. S.R. Rao at Kumbhar, where we collected, they collected these lead ingots. These lead ingots were collected during the shipwreck. It is a shipwreck underwater archaeological study. But at Kumbhar, we did an underwater study and underwater excavation, where we have seen lot of Ladot shaped, that is upside down shaped structures there. It was documented by the National Institute of Goa, Goa. This is the prehistoric site museum. So I want to show some varieties that was. This is the prehistoric site museum near Pundi, where we are having this kind of museum exhibits there. This is very interesting thing. This is near Tiruvallur. There is recently, this is a recent excavated thing, sir. This is at Pattare Perambudur near Tiruvallur. We collected artifacts. I'll show the artifacts down. And this is the ring well. This is a very big ring well underwent this place. And this site has we collected a lot of potteries, that is graffiti marked potteries, as well as the this type of pottery. So I want Dr. B.P. Lal to say something about this kind of pottery. This is because this is the first time we have come across this kind of pottery, sir. I don't know whether it is a conical jar or because it has some holes are there. So I want sir or others to give some opinion because we can identify what is there. And this is the copper plate grant of the Pallavas of Pallava. This is from Valancheri. Gift of land to Subramanya temple. It's a Tirthani to Subramanya temple is there by Abrachita Varma. He was the Pallava king. It belongs to 9th century AD. It's a bilingual. Both Sanskrit and Tamil inscriptions are there. It is. It has the Pallava emblem also there. It's a fully tied without any damages. This was recovered or collected by the State Department of Archaeology. This is another copper plate in the same place. This is Parantaka Chola. Both these plates, these two plates were in a big pot. This is the Parantaka Chola's period, Valancheri copper plate. It was found at a place called Valancheri. Then it was called as Valancheri copper plate. And it is also Sanskrit and Tamil language. And this gives a lot of information about the Chola dynasty. Who is the founder of the Chola? It is mentions a person called Otriyuran. So there are a lot of references about the Chola genealogy is given here and chronology. So this is another important copper plate from Anemangalam near. Now it is in Leiden. It's called as Leiden plate. Now it is not here in India. This is at this place called sorry.
Netherlands.
Netherlands. I'm sorry. Suddenly I could not do. It's in place called Netherlands. So see, it is written here as Anemangalam. This is larger Leiden copper plate by the Rajaraja first for issuing this for the Sudamani Vihara. There was a Vihara called Sudamani Vihara near Nagapattinam, where we have collected this thing, sir. It is there in Netherlands. So another important copper plate of the Chola dynasty. This is the copper plate of Esalam copper. It is called as Esalam copper. This is very interesting. It is collected by the State Department of Archaeology. It gives a lot of information about the exemption of taxes and construction of the Rameshwarama temple at same place at Esalam. So it gives a detail about the Rajendra Chola who was constructed the Gangakonda Cholapuram temple. It gives, this is the first reference that the Gangakonda Cholapuram temple was constructed by Rajendra Chola. This is the evidence we got from the copper plate. So these are the few copper coins of the Chola dynasty, particularly sitting and standing Ceylon man. This is the coin hoard and coin pottery. Chola, this Tanjavur, it's a Nagari script. It's a Nagari script. This is the inscribed copper, this gold ring. It is in Tamil Brahmi script. It is in, as I said, it is collected from the Amaravati bed only. It mentions about Tayan Othalan. It is in Tamil Brahmi script. So this is another important copper. This is another important potsherd. It gives the name of the Nedingili of the Sangam Chola dynasty. So it is in that we collected this in Peruriveli near Ramanathapuram district. So it is in Tamil Brahmi script. It says it is in Nedingili. So Nedingili and Nalankili are the two Chola dynasties mentioned in the Sangam, Chola kings mentioned in the Sangam literature. So this is very interesting and outstanding discovery from the place called Peruriveli. These are the inscribed potsherds. Inscribed conches collected from surface exploration and exploration. It is in Tiruvadai Vasal. It is in Tamil script only, 11th century CE. So this is the place I want to talk about Arahankulam. I have not mentioned, I didn't have any photographs of Arahankulam because suddenly only I heard from Dr. Maheshwaran that Maheshwaran sir that SAR is coming, DPLAL is coming. Otherwise, I might have heard all those photographs of Arahankulam in other area. This place I want to mention about this place, Arahankulam. It is near on the way to Rameshwaram, from Ramnad to Rameshwaram. It is in the beds of the Vaigai River. So it is a very important and trade route center. At Arahankulam, we have collected, first time we have collected Roman potteries as well as Roman coin. This is very important because previously we have collected Roman coins only in the exploration and the surface collections only. But here at Arahankulam, it is found in the trench itself, in the stratified layer itself. So that says that it is the 4th century AD. It is a coin of Arcadius Valentine second coin. So this gives a dating that still after Arikamedu was closed and the trading relationship with Arikamedu was closed, still the southern part of Tamil Nadu had a trade contact with the Roman people. So that is found in the Arahankulam area. So this is an Arabic letter of 18th century AD. It is mentioned here. So these are some of the excavated trenches at Gangakonda Cholapuram. It was the capital of the Rajendra Chola. It is very near to, now still our department is also continuing the excavation and they have revealed these kind of structures recently. It is mentioned in the, this is the Gangakonda Cholapuram site, excavated site. This is very interesting. This place is very interesting because I want to show this place. This is very interesting because this is the double layered wall. Because in between we collected lot of sand, so which shows it might be a cooling place in between this, or cooling or might be to prevent the shaking or other things. This might, there were poured sand, river sand here in this area. So this is very interesting thing we come across in the Gangakonda Cholapuram excavation. This is the Gangakonda Cholapuram excavation. This is also from the same place. And these are some of the artifacts collected in the excavation at Gangakonda. See a beautiful big iron iron nail as well as here. This is collected from, this is a hand of here, but maybe a later period, hand of the sword. This might have been a later period. But these are all from early area, that is the Gangakonda Cholapuram, Rajendra's palace place only. We collected these, we come across this kind of iron nails. And these are the some of the important artifacts. See the decorations, see the motifs, decorative motifs. This is the lotus decorative motif, and this is some of the yali type of motif. This might be the yali or lion motif, and these are the floral designs. This is also kind of yali or some other animal motif. These are all collected in the palace site at Gangakonda Cholapuram. So this shows it was definitely a palace site of the Cholas. Up to 250, they ruled this area. Up to 2 to 50 years, they ruled this area, Gangakonda Cholapuram area. And these are the some of the artifacts. This is the artifacts. That is the we call this. This is the coin mold. We collected in the coin mold. We collected in the Gangakonda Cholapuram excavation. These are all the coin molds. And this is very interesting thing. This is the Chinese pottery. We collected, it belongs to 12th to 14th century AD. This is the porcelain ware we collected in the excavated trenches at Gangakonda Cholapuram. And this is another site. No, I don't want to explain those things. Just I want to show. I thought it's only for the student, so I'll go fast. I'll come to the questions now. And this is the excavated trench at Panchalam Kurichi. It was conducted by the State Department, and we have collected these items of the later period of the Kattabomman, late Kattabomman. So these are some of the manuscripts that I want to show to the audience. This is some of the manuscripts. There's a big manuscript library in our department. So where we got these Karinal Vilakkam and daily and inauspicious, what are the inauspicious days and all, they have written here. This is another important thing. It is an engineering work of the Arabic with geometric diagrams. It is here in 19th century. It is in the preserved in the Government Oriental Manuscripts Library at Koturpuram. It is there. So this is a very important thing. See, all the engineering works are marked here. Urdu paper mass. This is the treatment as well as the what are the diseases and how to treat them and all written here. It was published by the Government Oriental Manuscripts Library. See, I think SARS might be interested in seeing this. It's a Mahabharata, a Persian paper MSS having vegetable color establishment. This is the vegetable color establishment. This is a vegetable color thing. It's a Mahabharata written in Persian paper. I think it's repeated here already. Sorry. So now we'll go to our question. What is absence of general sense of history among the people of India raises few major questions. So these questions were given by Air Marshal, and I thought we can discuss here. Why does archaeological research and excavations in India not receive the kind of support that once seen in advanced nations? No, that we can't say that today, because most of the people are mostly interested in archaeological things. They are mostly everyday archaeology has become a passion for people as well as others also. Even politically, they have taken archaeology as a tool also today. So today, the central and the state governments are providing adequate funds and other facilities for the archaeological research. Only lacking thing is the expertise. Experts are not available to do the archaeological factors here. That I will discuss next. So if somebody wants to discuss this question, you can. Otherwise, I will show these questions and then we'll discuss. What, sir? What do you feel, sir?
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, sir. Another question, is the policy right? India is a multinational state. And it is not important that each state has its own independent department of archaeology with full freedom for policy formation and execution. Answer, the policy is right. India is a country with huge diversity and rich language, cultures and regions. Hence, the states can handle their own cultural identity accordingly. That should be there, sir, because the state should be given a hand to handle their own cultural, because for as Sir said, Mahabharata stories and Ramayana stories are collected all over India. All when you go to a remote village at Rameshwaram or in Ramnad, they will say Rama came here. He had his bow in his hand here, and he hold his arrow here, and all. They used to say all the stories are there. A lot of stories are there. So we have to connect those stories with the archaeological findings. Then only it is good for the nation to have a cultural identity and cultural importance of our nation to the other world, sir, to the other countries also, to the other. So another question is lack of funding and adequate state support has hampered progress of major archaeological studies in the past. Tamil Nadu has immense wealth of archaeological sites to be studied, but many are stuck without progress. Example are Pumbuhar, Arikamedu, Kodumanal, etc. Where does the fault lie? Today, funding is not a question. Only the lack of expert in the field requires. So we have to train, a proper training should be given to the experts, because there is a lack of knowledge. See, when people are, sir, in the age of this age itself, is giving a lot of information about excavation and other things. But nowadays, we have to, these youngsters, they are not having any, they have only few knowledge. So we have to train them. We have to have some field experience to the people. Then only it will be ideal for to have a extensive excavation and explorations in Tamil, not only in Tamil Nadu, in other parts of India also. So question, interest in history gets a boost if the resources are better marshaled. Museums are very important phase of not just interest, but more of importantly for learning and research. To put it bluntly, India does not have a museum culture. Our museums are pathetic when compared to museums in Europe and America. This is a policy failure. No, that we can't say, sir, because it's not a policy failure. It should be, the interest should be cultivated from the grassroots level. So when we ask the children in state of Tamil Nadu, when have you visited the museum at Chennai, they used to say, no, we visited, we had a picnic there, we had fruits and other things only there. There should be a proper information board, or we should give a proper information and training to the students in a grassroots level. Then only they will question why this museum is like this. Why don't you have a nice museum and have a big collection? Because our Madras Museum have a big collection of things. It should be exposed to the people. Then only the people may question why you are keeping like this. Then we can see how we can improve the museum. That is my opinion. So archaeology, concluding, archaeology is a continuous search, discovery. It is an endless journey. Everything is tentative, not final. Archaeology, as we know, relied on the tools left behind our forefathers, and the human progress was based on technological development. Archaeology serves as a window for understanding the past. Based on that, the knowledge we can face the future more confidently. So, okay, sir, I will have the questions first, sir. Let us discuss, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay. No, I want to ask Bipilal, sir, about this Pattani Perambudur pottery, sir. I want to ask somebody, even Kalyanaraman, sir, others also can share their opinions, sir.
What is your question?
This pottery, sir, and I'll draw a line. This one, I'll draw a line. This is a pottery, sir. This pottery is a conical jar. So with a opening here, it's a pakka opening, very good opening, and here hole, and this some holes are there, 2 to 3 holes are there. Not in the bottom, in the place. See, this kind of polls are there. So we don't know what is the purpose. This maybe what is the purpose they are having this kind of. We come across 3 or 4 parties like this, sir. It's new to us. I don't know whether it has come across in other parts of India, sir, because it's a new to Tamil Nadu, sir.
Dr. B.V. Lal, would you like to comment, sir?
Yes, not yet the question.
Okay, sir. Anyway, leave it here, sir. We'll go to the questions, sir. Absence. Why does archaeological research and excavations in India not receive the kind of support that one sees in advanced nations? So my answer is no. We are getting a lot of fund and other things, sir. Is there any comment or anything, sir? You can share.
The point is,
Yeah.
Dr. Vasanthi,
Yes, sir.
it is, for instance, in 1930s, Dr. Wilderon came with a phenomenal work, the first volume of Story of Civilization, the Oriental Heritage. There he has paid a lot of tributes to Indian architecture, Indian archaeology, everything. But then it's almost 90 years from that. We
Yes,
have
sir.
made not a significant progress at all anywhere.
Oh,
Everything goes and gets stuck somewhere.
yeah.
Then you say it is only reason you are producing is that it's not financial reason. It is only due to lack of expertise.
Yes, sir.
I don't
100%.
think so, because Indian experts have been borrowed by other countries. For instance, in UNESCO invited all the Tamil architects, temple architects from Tamil Nadu under Dr. Nagaswamy. They worked for 25 years and they restored the temple culture at Angkor Wat after 25-30 years of working. When other nations could borrow Indian expertise, especially in temple architecture and related areas, why do we say that there is expertise is lacking in India?
No, sir. I'm talking presently, at present.
Professional in what sense?
Presently, there is no, because we are getting a lot of fund, sir. So lot of fund as well as lot of media is coming there and focusing things, sir. So lot of people are interested in Tamil Nadu. See, I am conducting classes, so many classes for many people. So all the youngsters till even the elderly people also. So most of them are interested, but we are not having the experts, sir, to do the basic work, sir. So that I feel, it's my feeling, sir.
So that's a combination, I would say. It also relates to the last question.
Yes, sir.
You said people should ask questions about why museums are not the way it should be.
Yes, sir.
They're not aware. They're not aware. It's the government and it's the people who make the policy should also relate to how museums are designed,
Yeah.
how all the wealth of information that we have is displayed,
Yeah.
and how it generates interest among people who come to see that this is something we need to learn and we can actually research. That is one part. The other part is where researchers get an area where they could actually do serious research. So I go, wherever I go abroad, I don't miss a single museum. And there is a huge world of difference between those museums. They have a fabulous library. There's an explanation. There are video mechanisms. There are serious research materials that are available. Everything, facilities are phenomenal, actually. Even in small countries like, Hungary, and Budapest Museum is out of the world in the context of archaeological evidence that is displayed there. But you go to Egmore Museum, it's got a fabulous collection of, materials. But the museum does not inspire, interest for a researcher to sit there and spend time. You go to any museum in the world, you'll find school children and teachers taking their classes and teaching them there what to do. You go to a Met Museum, that's a different class altogether. But why aren't we inspiring? Every city has a museum where if there is an archaeological work going on in that area, a permanent museum comes up immediately. And that museum should be world class. Then it will impact on education. It will impact on research. It will impact on people generating interest. It starts generating a sense of history in the people. And automatically you'll get the human resource that you're talking about.
Following this, I want to say the sense of history comes, it follows a sense of pride that it is there, it is our national wealth. For instance, when I had been to Philadelphia some years ago, my friend told me, an American friend told me, I will take you to a very historically very important place in Philadelphia. Even in 4:30, he took me to a tree. He said, this is the tree under which Benjamin Franklin used to drink tea every day evening at 4:30. There's no sign of Benjamin Franklin or the tea. It happened 150 years ago. But then they had the sense of pride. What is that we lack? We do. The government seems to lack a sense of pride. The citizen seems to lack a sense of pride. Only when you have a sense of pride and want to uphold our culture, it is possible to spread. People will visit the museum. The museums look like lost places, something where everything is hidden, like an old curiosity shop. It is an old curiosity shop, not an educating museum. No, nobody is prepared to explain anything. No proper write-ups are there. No books are available. But what do we do about it? It is not, you say that there is no lack of funds. If funds are available in plenty, then what is that which is lacking, which makes it a pathetic state?
Sir, as Sir said correctly, it is the lack of, even at the side of the people. No, what I say, sir, as Sir said, we should have, it's a lacking of the people also, sir. They are not having, as Sir said, they are not having a pride. They are, see, when you go to the government museum at Chennai, see the beautiful bronze collections, the world-class bronze collections are there. So the Nataraja statue and the Ardhanarishwara, all world famous and world-class statues, stone bronzes. So that should be appreciated by the people, sir. But we are not having that kind of sense. With the people should be trained first. They should be given some input and other things, sir. Then only the people will, after getting the appreciation from the people, definitely the government will change its attitude, I think so, sir. Because it's not because I'm a government servant, so I used to see the people when they come there. I used to give lecture and other things, sir. They're not interested. They'll go around and see, and then they'll come back and sit in the garden and take their open their tiffin box. So that is the attitude of the people, I think so, sir. This is my experience with the people.
Can we get Dr. B.V. Lal's comments on this?
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir.
Sir, excuse me, can I just add my opinion in this?
Definitely.
Professor Lal?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would like to congratulate the speaker on the excellent lecture. She took us on a very enlightening tour from the prehistoric times to the time of the Arabic and Persian inscriptions. And all sorts of antiquities and structures were shown by her. She deserves all congratulations, excellent things.
Thank you, sir.
And you see, about there is a general apathy towards archaeology in government circles. Often funds are lacking and the management is not very good. For example, if you take the Archaeological Survey of India at present, there is no clear thinking about what they do. Ancient monuments are left unattended. For example, Kalibangan has suffered a lot during the last 50 years. If you go to the site now, you cannot but weep. So, I mean, the whole thing requires an overhauling. At the moment, of course, the central government is busy with more important things. But in course of time, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Culture, they should give more thought to how to improve the archaeological sites, how to improve the museums, and how to make an awareness among the people. In fact, sometimes it may be necessary to have some buses with carrying the article material from place to place, showing them to the people. See, unless you go to the people with the material, they won't take any interest. I think these are the few observations that I would like to make. And at the end, I would like to thank the organizers once again for asking me to be the guest of honor. This is indeed a great honor done to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Professor. Dr. Kalyan Raman, do you have anything to say?
No, Dr. Raman, A.M. Rajesh Lal wants to say something.
Rajesh, oh yes, welcome.
Hello, Ram Mohan. See, there must be a more coordination between the educational institutions and the Department of Archaeology. I think every director of the archaeological department should become a resource person in every educational institution, from a school level to the university levels. That interaction is not taking place very systematically. I think we can easily find faults with one another.
I want to say something,
But if
sir.
a mechanism is set up for making an integral part of the educational policy, to have the children go to the museums as part of their educational system, there must be some way we should be able to have this interaction among the institutions. Director of Archaeology is a great institution. Universities are great institutions. Why can't they get together? I think that happens in the foreign countries, Dr. Mateswaranji. Academic interest is intense. So a museum calls upon a curator and then draws upon the talent of the academic institutions to participate. Periodical seminars and such fora are held together. That should happen. Museums should be activated, Department of Archaeology should be activated, and educational institutions must get involved. I think that will be a help, because from the young age, the child should be taken to a temple to see the importance of the temple for historical research.
That's right.
The child should be taken to Pumugar. So the tours must be organized. And as Professor Lal pointed out, we can have touring museums. Why we restrict only to museum to Egmore? Why can't it be taken to every village on mobile museums? I think we can innovate and do something of this kind. Thank you, Ramon. I think it's a great show. It's a very great presentation by Dr. Vasanti. And it is a privilege to meet our Bhishma Pitamaha, Professor B.V. Lal, and get his blessings. Namaskar.
Rajesh Lalji, you want to say something?
AVM Lal, sir. Rajesh, sir. You have to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
I wanted to say that the Archaeological Survey of India in the last 30 years has never had an archaeologist bar one or two. They've all been officers from the Indian Administrative Service. One day they're in archaeology, the other day they're in finance, the third day they're in somewhere else. Okay. And a person thus committed to a department like Archaeological Survey of India, who doesn't have a background of archaeology, is not going to do what is good for archaeology. I'm quite convinced about it. They don't think archaeology. You should be dreaming archaeology, you should be dreaming excavations, you should be dreaming research, you will be dreaming research and 100 other things if you are going to improve archaeology in India. They cite the other reason is lack of funds for monuments, conservations, okay? Lack of funds for excavations, lack of funds for explorations even. These are things that can be done at state level, but at national level, I don't know how much is given to these various heads. I'm quite sure that it's not a priority with the government. The day it becomes a priority, things might change, but I don't see that happening in the near future. Anybody can become, I understand that the posts are open to not only archaeologists, but architects, and 2-3 other such disciplines. Other thing is that you have Institute of Archaeology. Do we have any feed into archaeological departments? You have 2 courses over there, 2-year course, and then you're left to fend for yourself. I mean, this is the way we go through NDA and go into this service and go into that service and go into that service. Right in the beginning, a path is charted for a person who's entering the National Defense Academy. But is there a path charted for a person who's in the Institute of Archaeology course for 2 years? There are some things that need to be looked into. Thank you.
Anybody wants to say anything?
Probably you can respond to that.
Yes, sir. I want to say something, sir. One thing. See, it's a pathetic condition in Tamil Nadu, sir. There is no history department or cultural department in the colleges. Only the university is having the course. Only the Madras University is having the course. Other things are there is no history department. They are all closed. So that is the pathetic situation here. So if we have a department, history department and other departments, then only it will be good, I think so, sir. Because nowadays, I think Dr. Ram Mohan might have heard about this. All the history departments are closed in Tamil Nadu, the college level.
Right. Yeah.
But excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, but what is the initiative taken from the higher authorities of archaeological department or museums? Like they can have, time to time some dissemination of informations in terms of, having some festivals, like, Chola period, Chola period excavated or explored artifact festival and things like that. So that will in fact induce some interest in the general public, if not the students alone. And also, from the authorities of the museums, they can have some sort of tie-up, as Mr. Lal has suggested. They can have some tie-up with schools also. In schools, basically what do they just go for a picnic and come back. But what about having some sort of exhibitions, and then some sort of very competitive explorations on the site, on the inside competitions. Like they will definitely induce some interest in the picnicking children also. In fact, in abroad, museums and all, they are highly maintained. Yes, thanks to the funds they get from the general public. Here also the same. Like we are not, it's not so free to get into the museums and all to go around. We are paying definitely, but what is the outcome from that? Are they, taking care of the infrastructures? Because the moment we get into our Chennai museums, we have to, car ourselves. Such is the pathetic condition there. It's not being kept properly. So how do you expect people to go on a weekly basis or any general holidays? We need to induce people to visit what is our culture, our rich culture from ancient days. So the dissemination of information is very, 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 very lacking from the point of museums, from the point of archaeological institutions. It's not enough that we pass on the burden or baton to the policymakers that they are not done anything. But from the institutions, have you people done something to create interest? Thank you.
As Madam said, we got a lot of celebrations. That is, 2010 we had a World Tamil Conference, and we had a millennium, 1,000 millennium years celebration for the Tanjavur Big Temple. All celebrations we are conducting classes and other things also. Okay. But my feeling is, we as the officials and the policy makers, we are doing something there. Now you go to Madras Museum, it is well maintained. It's very nice. But the people are coming there and doing they are. So I want the people to be given educated. They should be educated. That is my point of view.
Dr. Vasanthi, I'm just intervening. You can
Sir,
stop
no, sir.
sharing the screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll stop.
Time for Professor Bibi Lal to.
Yes, sir.
So, Dr. Ram Mohan, you can bring the conclusion of it.
Okay. We had a very interesting session flagged by, as I said, the Bhishma Pitamaha, Professor B.B. Lal. Yeah, in a very short time of about 10 to 12 minutes, he has given the epitome of entire archaeological history of India, how and what is the need to do it further. Very interesting. And later, Dr. Vasanthi, as the doctor said, she took us on a tutorial tour of the thing. But then, whatever we have discussed, there's sort of disappointment that we are not rising to the level of the most ancient culture and civilization of the world. If not the civilization, the culture of the world. We don't have the sense of pride. So it is very necessary that the common consensus seems to be that we should be able to reach out to the younger people, and we should be able to teach them what is the fundamental. It is not merely information technology which they should learn. They don't even learn fundamental mathematics. They only see the computers now. So there should be a broad-based educational system where not merely science and technology, but also there should be an important place for culture and civilization, archaeology, architecture, everything. That is sadly missing today. It is not given the true proper place where it needs to think. For instance, very few people know Dr. Kalyan Raman has come 3 years ago. He published the volume on decipherment of the Indus Saraswati script. Very few people have come to know of it. It is a path-making discovery, but then we do not know. We still talk about what has been done 100 years ago. Even the government books do not mention anything about what has been recently done. There are about 8,000 sites in which the Saraswati sites, the excavations have been made. New things have come out, and there are genetics research, like Hussain Tamani of Cambridge. He came with a beautiful statement that the people from Iraq and Palestine, that area, where are called they are basically some of the people have the migrants from Indus Valley to there. That is not the migration from Central Asia to India, but then those people are those people who have migrated from the Five Rivers area, Indus Saraswati area to Iraq after the defeat of by Sudasa of the king there. So after the war of 10 kings, so they are migrated there. They become the these are the new discoveries, like the Haifa excavations, so marine excavations there, marine archaeology, where they come out single sunken ship of third millennium BC, second millennium BC, where they found the ropes were brought from Kerala, tire ropes. Tire ropes are made only in Kerala. So many things are there. Unfortunately, we are not even aware of it. We not even know the tinge of it. So it is necessary that large scale educational dissemination should be made and make people proud of it. Unless you are proud of it, you won't honor it, you won't study. That's what I feel. I thank the wonderful speakers, the Professor Lal and Dr. Vasanthi, and all those who enthusiastically participated, like Dr. Kalyan Raman and the rest. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Ram Mohan. That's been that brings us to the end of a wonderful session this evening, and it remains for me to thank Professor B.B. Lal once again for honoring us to be with us this evening. And sir, we wish you a long life, good health, and we are enormously blessed by your presence today. And thank you, Rajesh sir, for being with us today as well. And let me thank Dr. Vasanthi for this wonderful presentation, great discussion. all it remains to, it makes a very important point that without giving the importance to history that the nation should give, true nation building doesn't take place. And history is extremely important. Archaeology is the foundational, science or foundational process through which you discover your history. And I think we could have a better explanation from that than from Professor V.V. Rao. Dr. Kalyan Raman, thank you very much for being with us, and all the audience who've been there with us today. We will continue the series on history with in the future as well. Thank you very much, and all the best to you all. Stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm honored, sir. Dr. Rajesh, sir, I'm honored. Dr. Yadav Margesh, sir, I'm honored.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ram Mohan, sir.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.